Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Diary of a Name Dropper. We're on a slight mid-season break, and that's because I currently don't have an editor-producer. Well, I do, but he's very busy. But he's made some time for me today to tell us why he's busy, what he's been up to. It's pretty impressive. He is also my husband. Welcome to Diary of a Name Dropper, a show you edit and will be editing, Mr. Jeremy Chapman.
Hello, thank you very much for having me, Meredith Hepner Chapman. It's lovely to be here. It really is. Very odd to be here. I obviously have to edit it. I've got to listen to my own voice, and actually because I'm talking, it's a weird thing for me to be doing that. But it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and I have to let you speak. And if I don't, you'll edit me out. So that's great. Everyone wins. Look, we'll talk a little bit about how you got here, because when I met you, you weren't doing what you're doing now. But you are in the final, the top 5 of a global RadioStar competition, and I get asked lots of questions about it, and I should know all the answers, and I think I do my best. But it is quite confusing in the same way I find the
I'm in it.
The offside rule, and how you've spent 15 years trying to explain cricket and the NFL to me, and it just does not penetrate. But this has, I think, but you will be far better suited with your lovely, beautiful voice that's got you this far into RadioStar. So if you could please explain to my wonderful listeners.
Gladly. I'll explain what it is. It's a global radio competition, the only global radio talent contest going. It started off back in June when the top 25 was announced, and basically it's like a tournament as such, a knockout tournament where it starts with however many entries that started this year. I'm not fully aware, but there's a fair few hundred, I believe, that then gets narrowed down to a top 25, to a top 11, then to a top 7, gradually to a final 5. And then how you get through those stages are your set tasks by on-air coach. Hi there to Nails and Tracy. They're absolutely wonderful people, and I'll tell you more about them as well. But for now, let me explain how it all works. And you'll set these tasks, and that can be involving anything from filming yourself to recording a segment to just anything to try and show your personality, your voice, your character, and basically what it takes to be a radio star, if what you've got it takes. The judges are right around the world as well, so you're getting great exposure by being in this competition. So it's been been one hell of a journey. I've come out of my comfort zone. Yeah. And it's been and the thing is, because I'm not actually permanently on the radio at the moment, I don't have a regular show, so all of my content that I've submitted for each round has been original content that I've had to put together in the shed in my studio, and it's been great fun as well from that point of view, from a creativity point of view. So it's been incredible, and
it's taken your mind off world events, which has been quite nice. You've been able to take yourself away and as you say, be creative. So you're given a brief.
Yes.
And then how long are you given? I should know this. I know it feels like forever. It feels like you've been in this competition for... Sorry, no, Nails and Tracy, I think you're wonderful as well. You've honestly... Let's take this moment to say how incredible Nails and Tracy are, because they discovered you, didn't they, on LinkedIn, was it, or Pips? Or...
well, Nails found me on LinkedIn.
From On Air Coach.
Oh, from Nails from On Air Coach. He found me on LinkedIn. He'd heard my show reel I had on a now deceased website called The Pips, which was a website for anyone looking to get into radio to put their show reel on, and for radio stations to listen out for and to look for people to offer them jobs, etc. And the website was ending, but Nails had heard it and said, it's great energy. Have you ever thought about entering a RadioStar talent contest? And I was like, cynical. Yeah, of course, someone's trying to sell me something. That's always my first thought. And I replied, going, yeah, well, I sort of do podcasts and everything at the moment. I was trying to big myself up, but probably came across as a bit of an arrogant prick, but was still being polite. And Nails was lovely again. Said, yeah, that's fine. Get your entry in by this date. I think, it'd be good fun. Again, I was still cynical, thinking maybe there's some catch to this. Is this some, timeshare scheme? You know what I mean? When you're sort of thinking...
Well, how much radio had you done up to this point?
Hardly any, really. I'd only done a little bit. I'd probably have about 6 months in total experience under my belt, because I'd done a little bit of community radio, in the hometown of Tring, and I've also done a little bit of hospital radio at Stoke Mandeville Hospital Radio on the Tuesday night request show, and both with totally different experiences. But I very little experience, but I've always had a love of radio and always had a love of just talking and entertaining people. So to me, I thought that radio is a perfect fit for me, surely. And so you get a little bit of time in between when you get set your specs. So it can be anything from 6 weeks to a couple of weeks, as it is with the final. The entry for this for the final round is actually October 31st, Halloween. So I've got to get my entry in before then, which I will. I'll get that done tomorrow.
You can't give too much away, but I'm wondering if you're going with a Halloween theme.
No, I don't think so. I don't know yet. I don't know. To quote Nick Frost in Shaun of the Dead, I'll do it on the night. So it's that my attitude. It's I'll do it on the night. It's fine. I'll just do it, because.
Well, you have had a bit of this attitude. And I think there's been a little bit of, I think they're just joking. They're pulling my leg. I think in a minute they'll just say, "Oh, thanks for taking part, Jeremy." It was, and I think there has been an element of that. So you've been so nonchalant about the whole thing. You've left it all to the last minute, and now it really matters, doesn't it? And
it does.
Sorry, we were talking about Nails and Tracy. Sorry, they found you.
They found me. Sorry, they found me on LinkedIn. As I was saying, God, I do apologise. Sorry, I was trying to do a wonderful story about them, how lovely they are. But they found me on LinkedIn. But they've been there throughout this journey. I can just message them to say, is this okay? What do you think? And they just give such wonderful feedback, and they're so enthusiastic, and they're just genuinely lovely, lovely people who I can't thank enough for them encouraging me to get involved in the competition, and for just their warmth, and just their feedback is just such fun. I love chatting to them, and I don't chat to them enough, and I keep promising them a proper knees up. They're Irish, by the way. That's the sort of joke we have, going out for a proper knees up, and I'd love to, because they're fun people, and they are just, when you're sort of taking those first steps of trying to do something, entering a competition, putting yourself out there to be judged, they're the best people to have around you to metaphorically hold your hand and just say, "You're all right, you can do this."
Well, without talent spotters like that, so many people wouldn't get the opportunity. I mean, you certainly wouldn't put yourself forward for things without people actually seeking you out. I think it's lovely. I think it's brilliant, and what a good ear they have.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, I was just thinking I was only going to make the top 25, so to even get this far, to be,
that's what I mean.
To
you
be
didn't
top,
really think.
I didn't. I thought anything more than this is a bonus now. So to actually finish top in the semi-final and to be in the final is just incredible. I'm still in a bit of shock about it, and but still having that level of belief that it's like, well, no, I want this, and I need this, because it's just something that. I'm 45, I'm a middle-aged white man. I thought, there's a lot of youth in this competition. And one of the wonderful things that Nails and Tracy said was, why do you want to think like that? You've got experience. Well, I suppose life experience. Yeah, I haven't got much radio experience, but it just suddenly changes your mindset. And often that's all it takes, is just to change the tone of that voice that's telling you something. And actually, it probably might be just trying to help it. You might just be interpreting it as a wrong voice at the time. But yeah, they are. So Nails and Tracy, thank you. I should just say
you
thank
have
you
always
so
wanted
much.
to be a radio presenter, though.
Oh God,
we bonded over our mutual love or weirdness as kids. Where I was an only child, you had much older siblings, and so there were times when we just entertained ourselves. And mine was to pretend I was a DJ and make tapes on my mum's Sony music station, music centre, wood panelled, and I'd play records and make, do the intros and outros and make my own adverts, and didn't realise, but it was being creative. And I wish back then there were, that was on the curriculum, and there were more, but it was a long time ago. It was 70s, 80s. I'm even older. And so I never even thought about it as a career. It was just always, I'd love to do what these people do, but I never in a million years thought that's obtainable. And I imagine likewise for you, you were going to work for the family business. I think that was
absolutely. I mean, I never thought it was attainable. I never thought anything like this could happen for me. I believed I could do it, but I never thought the opportunity would ever come. I had 20 years working in the motor trade, working for the family business. I met some wonderful people, had some great experiences. And I think that was a great proving ground for learning the skills it takes to be a decent radio presenter, to be a good talker, to be a people person, really. Because every customer is different. They're not in that they all want the best deal and they want the best service. But what that best deal is to them and what the best service is to them can be completely different. And it's understanding that. And I think that was always the wonderful thing, was every customer that came in, I never thought I was going to sell a car. I thought, I want to make sure that this customer likes me. I want to make sure this customer enjoys coming in here, because I know that every other showroom they go into, they won't like it. We used to see some coming in, I won't mention some of these great big franchises' names, but you'd see these customers coming in looking shell-shocked, and you'd want to put your arms around them and offer them a cup of tea and get one of those silver blankets, those foil blankets. It's okay, sit down. I've got this. As a man sitting in a corner rocking, crying, I went to Perry's. Oh, I didn't say.
But people do buy from people. You're absolutely right, and people aren't a one size fits all. So and I think was it Toby Anstis who said this, and something you've always said is when you present, when you're looking into that mic, you mustn't think of how many people are listening. You're just talking to that one person, but you have to make it likeable to, I guess, as many people. So it's a bit of a juggling act. So all those different facets of personalities that are within you mixed together to make the perfect, lovely, most often background voice to radio, because that's what radio can be. It often is such company, and you don't want a jarring voice. I mean, unique voices definitely have their places. I mean, I love listening to Janet Street Porter and things like that, but you certainly couldn't have Janet Street Porter on all the time. A lot of the time you just want some. That's why I love Jo Wiley. I love what she says and I love what she's talking about, but she's great to have on in the background while you're cooking or while you're with the family. And it's just so inobtrusive, and the music's just lovely, and I think that's what the ideal broadcasting voice is. Certainly not what I've got, but the ideal broadcasting voice is maybe what you have. I know that your heroes are the Radio 2 legends of Terry Wogan, and with regards to comedians, Dave Allen. But the first thing I noticed about you was your lovely voice. I thought, God, such a lovely voice, and so calming to my mad personality. And I know that went from you working on radio, people sort of used to message in and say, "Oh, I love your voice," and it's very flattering, isn't it? And I think if your content is great as well, it's like a lovely cup of tea and a foil blanket. Yeah, there we go. I brought that back in. Where was I going with that?
I always think that's for trauma. That's the only thing. No, I think you alluded to a bit. One of my comedy heroes there, Dave Allen. I did a bit of stand-up comedy as well, and again, I think the motor trade helped me to do that, because by meeting different people, you can learn that your powers of observation are pretty good. and I love a bit of observational humour, and we would get different customers in, and often I'd then build little backstories, just not for the staff or anything like that, but actually for my own comedic purposes, just for a bit of fun, and it was just, I suppose it's that sense of imagination, having that, and just because it made the day interesting as well. And certainly if you were with a customer that was just terribly boring, but you'd made up that they were, whatever in your head, I don't want to go into it in case they're listening, and I won't mention names, but you make something else up about them in your head, it then makes it a bit more amusing. And I used to say this to you, is sometimes imagine that you're like,
when I worked, I should point out, I worked in a school kitchen when we first moved up here, because why not? And it provided me with some independence after a horrible divorce, but it was tough going at times. I didn't have a lot of similar views or opinions or like-minded, and you used to say to me, pretend you're in a sitcom or like a sort of Office style mockumentary, fly on the wall type thing, and just then everything then becomes funny. Anything a bit offensive that you'd normally get upset about or a bit irate over, or a bit, no, that's not right, and sort of come over as a bit of a dig, just then becomes a bit funny. And it's definitely it's so important. It is so important, and you you're such a good mimicker and impersonator. I mean, to the point where I just will meet someone. It sounds really awful. It's not like you mimic someone straight after meeting them, but you know, good friends of ours. You know, if you're telling a story about them, you'll automatically you almost morph into that person. It's just and certainly with people in the public eye, you're so funny, and you know, some we can't mention, you know, criminals and things, but I think that's an absolute gift, and I think it's so wonderful at 45 that it's been spotted and encouraged it. I mean, I spotted it a long time ago. I knew that whilst I'm sure you enjoyed selling cars, I knew that I just couldn't understand why you hadn't gone into acting, or because I had so many friends in the music industry and the acting industry, and I'd gone to drama school, and I think, or drama college, I always make that sound so glamorous, but I think I was always so surprised you hadn't done it with Amdram. Well, I think I was quite grateful you hadn't done Amdram, but it was really surprising to me. But now that you're doing it, it's like you were born to do it, Craig David. You know, it's like it just doesn't seem like
reached the final of Radio Star on Monday.
I think that's
for a drink on Tuesday.
I think got made redundant on I think it's been a lifetime in the making, really. I'd like to think that. So this isn't something that's happened overnight. This is, you know, a lot of your therapy is just to come out in the shed and do sort of funny sound effects, or just do little show reels or little ideas for podcasts.
I love experimenting bits. I mean, that's what sort of switched me on to wanting to do podcasting, because I had a little bit of radio, as I've mentioned, and before that I was just playing around with recordings and various bits and just messing around with various stuff. And from that came a spoof podcast based on the town that we live in.
This was long before lockdown.
Long before lockdown, yeah. So I had, like, you know, roads of Tring, where people would say what favourite road there was. Like, you know, I love Brook Strokes with best, that sort of stuff. And it was just, and then, you know, coming up today on the Tring podcast, I'll be chatting to Police Chief of Hertfordshire, Mike Fascist. And it was just something a bit stupid. Maybe I did make it available, actually. I did, actually. It's available on Mixcloud. I'll put that in the show notes. But it was a bit of fun,
Friday Night Live.
But it just came from that. That was just wanting to be creative, based on pattern of observation, and just, you know, just seeing people, because I'm not mocking people. I love people. I really do. I love watching people, what makes them tick, and just observing how people react to things and how different people react to the same thing in different ways, sort of thing. It's just, I really do. I think everyone's so fascinating to just observe.
Yeah, I love people watching on the tube as well. I love it.
Yeah, anywhere, just to watch, just watching any form.
You make backstories. You mentioned that in our wedding speech. You actually, there's I can't remember the line, but it's, I hope we carry on making backstories for people
that we meet.
And that's always been, it's, you know, to the point where I meet these people and I think, God, I know all about you. And I might even say, oh, how's your neighbour, you know, with the blocked drain? And they'll look at me blankly, and it's like, no, that is a character that we've completely created in our I don't even think that makes sense to anyone listening. But, you know, when you're
like, you know, you add in things. So we have a courier. I'm not going to name his name, but I just made up that he had a massive obsession with Meredith. But why wouldn't he? Obviously. But I made up he had this massive, and like he'd be disappointed when I opened the door. And like, you know, he did that whole thing of like, you know, putting like his finger across his neck as if to go, "You're dead" next time. Like, you know, and then I make up that the postman actually really enjoys me opening the door and in my pants. And I'll come
like to make me jealous.
And I'll come upstairs. I get to the bedroom, and it's unbelievable. I'm like a piece of meat to him. It's just awful. Or, you know, like he waited at the end of the drive. He normally just knocks and leaves the parcel on the doorstep. He waited at the end of the drive. He wanted to see it. Like, it's just adding these bits. It doesn't necessarily happen, or it does. Like 1% of it happens, and then I add in the 99% that then makes it entertaining. And some will call that bullshit. I call it, like, you know, really good observational humour and comedy. But that's it. That's like, you know, having a desire to do that.
Like our neighbour who always has a spade in their boots.
Oh yeah, he had a spade and some rope and some bags in his boot, and we were like, what does he do? and he goes out at night. Yeah, do you know what he does? He goes around picking up litter, right? And he's really nice to do that.
And he's won awards for it.
And he's won awards for it. And he goes to the pub in the evening because that's when he's free. You know,
we had to make him.
We made out he was a child killer who was or burying prostitutes in ditches. Yeah, that's right. But that's just what happens.
That's what we do when we get bored, because we both have social anxiety, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's because I've made up these stories about people. I'm so scared. Oh no, they're not actually like that. Oh, I know I can go to that shop. Oh, that's fine.
But yeah, you've always loved a sitcom, and we've often been in situations, be it my dabble in the in a political party or our time at local radio, you have always looked at the sitcom aspect of, could this be a sitcom?
Oh.
And the answer is very usually yes, indeed.
Well, I love to get involved with community. I really do. I have a real passion for it because I believe it's just not because I want awards or a statue put up.
No, you really don't, because you're a bit of a rebel.
I'm a rebel, but not because I want like 3 initials after my name or anything like that.
You would never have them.
I want to do it because people sometimes, I'm not saying it's a nanny state, but sometimes people just need a bit of encouragement. That's all they need. They don't need it done for them. They just need a bit of encouragement, a bit of motivation as to why it's a good idea, how they'll benefit, and really what it will do. And I believe that there's so many great things that go on in community. But the other thing with community is it is all a bit of a sitcom. And I also treat some community as a sitcom. I'm going to come clean. I used to have. We'll come to that in a minute. I used to have some spoof Twitter accounts called Berkhamsted Facts, which was all about. I'm revealing my identity.
Oh my God! I think you should do this.
Berkhamsted Facts.
I think you should beat this out on the actual episode.
Where it's a Twitter account. I don't run it anymore, by the way, but I used to. Yeah. But it was a satirical look at Berkhamsted, which is quite a snobby town in Hertfordshire. And it's just, I just would take the mickey. And as part of it, I caused a little bit of a brouhaha when there was an empty shop that had been shut for a little while. It was a new development. It was a big glass building, and this poster appeared on the front of the building on the window with Hooters Berkhamsted opening here. And I just sat and watched the community groups come alive. There were people and I just it's called mild-mannered anarchy, I think, isn't it? It's just
armchair anarchy.
Armchair anarchy. So I caused a little bit of a brouhaha, and there was lots of other things.
It's always harmless fun, just to see people outraged about really minor and trivial things, like driving around the car park at Waitrose the wrong way. They hate that.
Oh God, yeah. So there was just those observations, and saying that Berkhamsted no longer, the lowest denomination they would accept now in Berkhamsted would be £10 notes and upwards to filter out the oiks. It was just stupid stuff. You can still I'll have a look on Twitter at Berko Facts. I think it was it.
Don't.
Have a look. Go on. It's funny. I don't do it anymore. Then there was Wigington News, which I got rid of, based about a little village called Wigington, which was sort of like a bit like the Wicker Man.
Isn't this just telling people you're a bit sinister?
No, it's called having fun. Like, seriously, the world is such a...
You never trolled people or anything.
Oh God, I never trolled people.
It was just like
only
comedy
the people
facts.
that lived in the towns and the villages besmirching it.
Not directly. And it was just like comedy statuses, as if it was a bit hot fuzz and they had a local newspaper. It's like articles from... a hot fuzz-esque.
Well, it was like, please,
the annual stone at the moon throwing.
Yeah, well, no, please note that the village will be closed this weekend due to the annual Tupperware audit.
Yeah.
And then I'd post updates throughout the day. Mrs. Quim has said that she's got 4 lids but 2 pots, so she's furious. So who's got those 2? And it was just bits. So it's just, I love to cause, to me it's just like, as I say, places like Tring and Wigington and Berkhamsted and things are lovely. They're lovely and stuff.
We have done our fair share of local stuff.
I've done my fair share of community and local things, but it's just like, I think it just sometimes can be a bit stale, and I think it's like you're not harming anyone by doing it, having a bit of fun. And actually it was, I was doing it, and actually the local paper cottoned on and was like going, "This is very funny, who are you?" I was like Banksy at one point, but I wouldn't give my identity, but I don't mind now because it's just, I don't really do it. But it was just something a bit stupid, like when Lidl was coming to the town, there'll be no Lidl in Berkhamsted, and then that caused a mass hysteria on BBC News, even getting BBC News saying, "Is Berkhamsted too posh for Lidl?" So yeah, I've had some fun. That's fun. Anyway, if you're a potential radio station, understand that was my past, and now I'm a professional and a very safe pair of hands.
I don't even know what to go from here. I have to say, all that sort of you making those sort of comedy pagan-esque headlines bit us on the arse, didn't it, a bit when we moved up here. And I moved the kids up here from North London, and the headmaster of the school we chose had just moved here from North London too. I think he'd been at a school in Camden. So it felt like, there's a couple of us Londoners up here, and the school had to do a parade I hadn't really paid attention to what it was. I just got the letter and was told, the kids have to be at school at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And I thought, oh, how quaint, how lovely, we've just moved here. And I was sort of chatting away to another mum, and we were walking down the high street, and the next thing I saw was a man with a horse's head on a stick, and then a green man with a sheep on a stick, and it was an apple fair, and it was the most. It was like, I'm terrified. I actually have a quite real fear of the child catcher. Like, I couldn't be alone in the shed and have it pop up. And it was like a sort of mix of the child catcher and Wicker Man all rolled into one. And I'll never forget my son kind of going, "Mummy, what's that?" And then the headmaster turning to me thinking, "What the fuck? We're not in Kansas anymore. We're not in North London anymore.
We're not in Camden anymore."
And it was this sort of, exactly, we're not in Camden anymore. And there was this sort of, okay, embrace it. And it was just, it's quite beautiful, but I just wasn't expecting it. It's very, there's Morris dances, kind of, like old white dudes jumping around with bells around their knees. It's kind of, I want to say trippy. I obviously got sacked from local radio for saying Xanadu was trippy, but in fact that leads nicely on with the Apple Fair.
Because actually I love the Apple Fair. I think it's a marvellous spectacle in Tring, and I think it's an event that should be supported far and wide, because we have some marvellous apples, and it's very pagan.
Spartans,
they're great apples, fabulous. But it's a brilliant event, and again it brings a community together, and that's what it's all about. And leading on to my time at community radio was. It was during lockdown. I saw this advert, and it was like, community radio in my town, and it's internet radio. You present from home, and I thought, well, during lockdown sounds brilliant. Yeah, I'll have a go, and sort of sent an email in. Had forgotten about it for a little while, and they got in touch with me, and I thought, well, this is great. This. I was really going into it thinking this is a great way to keep in touch with the community, to bring some entertainment, to make
ever-growing platform,
to make people sort of keep in touch with each other, to just have some fun. I had a segment on the show called Dancing in the Street, where if you were dancing in a street in in the town, you were to text in or tweet in, let me know, and we could try and the next week send in footage or something. It was just a nice way to engage the community.
So that makes me think back quite fondly to lockdown. We were in a very privileged position in lockdown purely because we like each other and we had the space and copious CBD to self-medicate. But you had your shed, and it was our way of keeping in touch. And I always felt like I was exhausted at the end of the day. We'd spoken to so many people. We were really, really lucky, but it was also fantastic escapism.
Oh, it was incredible, because I just felt that it was...
keeping the community connected.
Yeah, I wanted to keep the community connected, and that was the main aim, because when there's a radio station in your town and there's lockdown, that's the real aim. And I think I did that on my show. It was hard to... we'd get texts in, we'd get tweets in and things like that. I used to do the big 7:30 Tuesday shout-out and various things. You'd have these regular features that people would then catch on to, and if they were listening, they would want to shout out. And I just had great fun with it, because
loads of texts and calls, and it was just
good fun. It was just great fun. But we made some really good friends along the way. Met some brilliant people. The volunteers at the station were just incredible, really.
You produced a few shows, didn't you?
Yeah, I used to produce a few shows as well. That was I'd been doing a bit of presenting for a while, and then I just thought I need to focus on work more, and was just sort of I stepped back from the microphone for a little while for various reasons, but the opportunity was still to sort of produce some shows, and I thought, let's have some fun with that. I'd like to sort of hone those skills a bit, because I was looking to do podcasting. So I was helping people produce shows. Jackie Travers, her show is fabulous, the lunchtime show, and then I worked with wonderful Hayley, who's also on Four Calling Birds, a former bird alumni, and just had great fun, because that was just then the creativity. I could do presenting, I knew that, but I wanted to just I wanted to learn more. And then another shout out, Stephen Carter Bailey of
Bake Off,
as he's formally known. And I used to produce his show as well, because I just wanted him to enjoy doing his show as much as I used to enjoy doing mine. And often...
Did you love it as much as producing?
It's a completely different level of sort of enjoyment, I would say. Because
it's such a silent... It's very... often unrecognised, the producer and the editor, what they do.
So for me, I would say being a presenter, I don't think there's any skill in it. I just like to talk, and I just naturally want to engage with people and touch strangers, metaphorically. But by just, making their day brighter, by not being too opinionated and not being too smarmy or too me, just talking like I'm company for them, just being a nice voice that can be there and guide them through the day. But then producing is a real different kick, because then that's working with talent, and
I think you're a natural teacher as well.
I love both. Yeah, I'd say I love teaching people. That's one of the things that, again, so from producing radio shows came then producing podcasts, and again working with people, volunteers at the station, helping them, training them, getting them through, just to the point where they felt competent, that they can do it themselves, and not competent and confident that they can do it themselves. Because often there was that element of when you're at home, you haven't got someone there just to say, okay, you're doing great or whatever. So I helped a fair few people there, and it was a real... I look back with fond memories and focus on the positives, because it was just it was a great time just to grow my creativity. And so producing then podcasts came about after that, starting off with Four Calling Birds with yourself.
Well, you'd produced my jazz show.
Oh, I forgot about your jazz show, of course.
Come on.
Yes, of course.
I had a jazz show
as well.
but at the same time I helped find a dog that was lost in Tring Park. So I kept it community, but I had... Apparently, I used to educate people. I used to make people used to go, I don't really like jazz. I don't really want to listen. And I'll say, listen to my show. I guarantee I'll find a song that you love, and you'll be like, oh, I didn't really realise that was jazz. Anyway, sorry, bit of self-promotion there. But you were the most wonderful producer, and there were some really quite stressful moments, and you kept me very calm. And
well, I think one of the ones we should really talk about is the we did a live... Not pre-recorded.
Oh my Christ! Yes,
live bake-along.
Yes, with Stephen Carter Bailey off of Bake Off.
And not on just any old night, Christmas Eve night.
Yeah, broadcasting to the community and globally, because we were internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was then hosting the carol concert.
Yeah,
the virtual carol concert afterwards.
I'm actually sweating thinking about it.
I mean, literally 2 minutes before the mics went live. And if you've listened to Diary of a Name Dropper before, and you've heard the conversation with Stephen Carter Bailey, or you've listened to Four Calling Birds, you'll probably know the story. But I'll give you my insight from that point of view. There was a lot going on. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Ex-husband phoning up, giving grief to Meredith. Dog pissing on bed.
Dirty protest.
Me frantically just trying to get all the cables sorted from the shed, so it's all in the kitchen, so it's ready for the bake-along.
Daughter barricaded in bedroom with said dog.
It was all Christmas Eve, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm missing National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I want to be watching that. No, I've got to do this. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
There was a lot of alcohol consumed as well. I'm not condoning drinking.
Bundt cake.
And when I say you two weren't drinking, I was, because just to tame my nerves, because then I had to go on air afterwards to do the carol concert.
Ollie Reed.
And I was, one of my heroes, as you said earlier, was Dave Allen. The man used to sit there with a cigarette and a drink, and that was how I used to present radio. It was marvellous. But those are stressful times. I think if I can do that, you can do anything. And I think it's always wise to check in on your progress.
This was obviously voluntary. I would like to point out Jeremy wasn't drinking on the job, or a paid job.
It was Christmas Eve.
And it was Christmas Eve, yeah. And we were pretty much running a radio station. So yeah, it was great fun, and we made enormous, brilliant friendships, and we do podcasts, and you edit some podcasts for people. That
sort of came about from just thinking I'd like to have a go. I love producing still, and I'm happy just to sit behind the person that's behind the mic. So I thought let's set up Your Voice Here, which is originally the name I had for a podcast production company before lockdown, but that went on the back burner when I sort of committed to community radio. So I started it back up again at the back end of last year, 2021. I was thinking, I can't wait until the new year to start the business, and I thought, why am I doing that? Everyone else is probably doing that. Give myself an advantage. And that extra week just helped, because January was a really good month rather than being a bleak month. It was just positive because there were people approaching me saying, "Oh, I've heard your podcast. I'd really like to do this." And then we started up this podcast, Diary of a Name Dropper, and then came the Slimson podcast. A big shout out to Ollie. Fantastic. If you like your house music, then do check out the Slimson podcast. Some fantastic interviews. Mr. C from The Shaman being one. I've met some incredible people. Other great podcasts I've worked with. I'm currently producing now is Two Lit Chicks podcast.
I love them.
They're fabulous. Hi to Jen and Julia. They are.
I wish it'd been my idea.
I love them. I adore every podcast I edit and produce. I adore every one of them. But there was a time when Meredith kept saying, "Oh, you're off to the shed to be with your other women."
Yeah, but then I started reading all the books they recommended,
fabulous.
and it reignited my passion for reading. So thank you, Jen and Julia. And it is such an enjoyable podcast. I love it. And it's just, everyone check out Two Lit Chicks, and don't say it too fast.
No, you've got to be careful. And most recently, Mandy Henson with Talking with Strangers, a Jack Savoretti fan-based podcast. But it's not all just about Jack.
No, he is but the common interest.
It is just but common interest. And there's been some fantastic conversations on there with all kinds of people. It's global already, listened to around the globe, and global guests. So it's very exciting. So you can find all those links in the show notes. But with other exciting projects coming up as well. So, that's exciting. I can't say too much.
And you mention globally, and that's because you do everything remotely. From your studio, so all your clients and all your podcasts are done. You talk; it's as though you're in the same room. It's absolutely beautiful, but they're all set up, and you're there, and it's like a virtual studio, and it's just really quite special how you can do podcasts with people in Brooklyn or. But that's incredibly lucky that you found this sort of passion that we've been allowed, but which is why I think back fondly to lockdown, which sort of opened these ideas of people broadcasting from home and turning shoe cupboards into voiceover booths so they didn't have to travel into London anymore. And I know coming out of lockdown, a lot of people struggled with mental health and wanting to stay at home. And we've been very lucky that obviously we've been able to, but you did attempt some on the road, roadie style sound engineering work, which you were fantastic at, but you got a diagnosis, the answer to a lot of questions.
I shouldn't just leave a cliffhanger there of diagnosis. A diagnosis of agoraphobia, which I'll start explaining about. I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar. I was working with one of the finest Elvis impersonators in the country.
After Austin Butler.
In the country, if not the world.
After Austin Butler.
Well, you might give Austin a run for his money. Alvin, the ultimate Elvis impersonator, it was fabulous, and I had such great fun, and I had some great laughs with him on the road going around, and it was just there was an advert came up on Facebook, and I'd seen Alvin, and if you've not seen him, if you're in this sort of area, do look up. I think it's alvin.co.uk. Give him a plug, and do check him out because it's old school entertainment. That's what I'm going to say. But it's class. I mean, I love entertainment. That's my chair creaking, by the way.
It's very British, I'd say.
Yeah,
sort of a British take on Elvis. And
look, if you like Elvis, he's
what's that show? Phoenix Nights. I mean that as a compliment.
Alvin admits, he said, life on the road can be Phoenix Nights at times, but there were.
At times.
We had some good laughs, and I still credit him with a line I used when I did my first stand-up skit. Was I was in Tring, and I said, "Here we are in Tring, home of beautiful women and great rugby players," and then looked at a woman in the audience and said, "In what position do you play, madam?"
Terrible.
It was a great way to break the ice, and the thing is, like, if people like you on stage, you can get away with taking the piss out of them. I'm not misogynist. No, I'm a piss taker. I love it. There's a difference, and to me, if people like you can get away with piss taking.
It's that old school as well, end of pier sort of mother-in-law gags.
It's sort of. Look, there's some. I mean, like, one of the ones again I did laugh at was he said I had to go to Specsavers to get some new glasses. My sister-in-law's just sat on them. He said, I probably should have taken them off first.
Oh, my God.
Sorry. Okay. He was fantastic. It was a great experience. But unfortunately, I started finding that I was having anxiety attacks, panic attacks before leaving the house, having to sort of psych myself up. Like, if I was being picked up at, say, 5 o'clock, I would then be having to psych myself up for about midday. everything would stop at midday so I could just sort of chill out and get myself around the right frame of mind. I was sweating profusely. I was just, it was awful. It was absolutely awful because and I couldn't work out why. It was just like, but I'm enjoying doing this job and I'm so torn and I want to commit to this, but there's something that's stopping me and I can't fully work out why. And there was one night, and we were in a venue in Dunstable in Bedfordshire, and I just popped outside to get some air because when I first started with Alvin, the venues were quite, I don't want to say empty. They weren't empty, but they were full to as much as capacity would allow for the time that we were in, because there was still social distancing. There was still a lot of controls in place to prevent, spreading the virus. So it was okay at first, and then gradually, as the venues stopped sort of putting as much care into it, it was shoulder to shoulder. It was really busy. It was a lot of hustle and bustle, and I found I was having panic attacks. And I always have this slight miserable side to me where I sort of love people but also can really despise people, or just the general public, and just because I'm miserable. It's not them, it's me. And I thought, is it that? And I thought, no, it's not that. I couldn't put my finger on it. And I was outside, and I was just having a massive anxiety attack, and I nearly just jumped on a bus to get home. I thought, I need to go, and I thought, I can't do that. I can't let Alvin down, And the next day I went to the doctor because I was finding that I was working, I'd work a Friday and Saturday, and I'd take about 4 days to recover, which then I'd start working again with him. And it was just, I thought, what is doing this? I'm not work shy, I'm doing the job, I'm doing the work properly, this is all good. And when I explained it all to my doctor, he said, have you ever considered it's agoraphobia? Now, agoraphobia is what I viewed as a fear of open spaces, or fear of leaving the house. And I just went, oh, fuck off, pardon my language. And I said, I love going out. No, you must be joking, I love going out for walks. He went, no, that's not what it is. And when he started explaining to me, a little light went on. And I thought, okay, this now makes a lot of sense. And since that time, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on my life through the years of looking at it and going, well, now that makes sense, and now that makes sense. And actually, going to the pub on of an evening was wonderful, but I used to really suffer for days after because it was real anxiety, real just, oh God. And I used to have to almost act like a class clown.
You put on an act.
It was, yeah. I sort of, if I was around people I knew and I was very comfortable with, I was fine because it was just like, we're going to the pub, I know what's going to happen. There was a routine, it was comfort. As soon as there was someone else added to the circle or someone else came out with us, I then, I found like, thinking, why don't they like me? This is weird. Because I was probably being almost so intense, I was trying to inflate my self-esteem, and I didn't realise that at the time. But it was just trying to get through social situations, real social anxiety. So it was interesting being diagnosed with it because it didn't suddenly restrict me. It made me understand more. There were times there'd be times we'd say, I'd commit and say, yeah, I want to come to that. I'll come to that with you. And then, the night before or the morning of, I'd start a row just because I knew it'd mean I wouldn't have to go or we wouldn't go. And that wasn't healthy. That was stupid. But I recognised that because it was my way of dealing with it because I couldn't cope with saying, no, I can't come. It was just this. And I think you understanding it has helped as well, because often you'll go, look, I don't mind going, it's fine, or I'm not fussed about going, whatever. I can cope with certain things. I still enjoy going to the pub with my mates. I still enjoy going for walks. I still enjoy going to someone's house that I know, or going to somewhere I know. That's fine. Familiar
You're better
territory.
with spontaneity, I'd say, as well.
A little bit, yes, but often it can then be quite sort of trigger anxiety. Again, I like to sort of know maybe what's happening. It's that. And again, looking back at my childhood, being a kid, of being a homeboy, wanting to just stay at home all the time and just not really wanting to leave. It wasn't because I was a strange kid staying in my room. I just enjoyed my creature comforts, and TV was just so lovely as a form of entertainment and information, really. But yeah, TV was definitely a real level of escapism and a way of inspiring creativity, coming up with silly ideas. I mean,
Tiz was
Swap
Shop.
Yeah, I mean, that there was. I wouldn't lie. I'd be lying if I said that those didn't influence me a little bit. For a one-off that I'd love to bring back was a cabaret show I ran called Heavy Petting on a Thursday night.
And House Party, I thought you were going to say.
And House Party was another one. There was a lot of influence, but Tiz was definitely that sort of fun.
Hosted by real dickheads.
Well, yeah, anarchic. It's live. It's
misogynistic, angry men.
Larry Lynn was
I hated him.
Yeah,
I hated him.
I haven't heard from him for a while.
I don't like alter egos very much. I know a few men that have random alter egos, and I understand they're in the arts and it's quite method and what have you, but when Jeremy was doing this cabaret show, which was very well received. I'm not being mean.
It was good. It was really good.
It was great. It was great. It was great fun, and it was very much like lounging. You're listening, and it was, but Jeremy was quite method during the process.
Totally. I was Daniel Day-Lewis.
And oh God, I found Larry Lynn absolutely repulsive, and he'd say really sexist things to me, and it was I don't know whether it was just venting or cathartic in this time of Me Too and feminism, but yeah, the women are revolting.
That was the point of it. It was to be.
You were so disgusting.
It was, but that was the point. It was ironic. I was laughing at myself.
It was completely ironic, and you were taking the mick out of men like it.
Yeah, it was my tribute to awful men. Really, and Larry was 1% likable. It was. I had
I'd be pushed to find that 1%.
And I'd love to. I'd love to bring him back in some shape or form, because it was fun, because it was a mix of stand-up comedy, cabaret and live music. There should have been some magic, but the magician vanished. So
my son even got involved.
Yeah, I kicked him square in the bollocks. I wasn't meant to.
He took it like a pro.
I had a segment called Now That's a Talent. Oh yes, Larry Lynn here. How are you doing? All right.
Please, it makes my skin crawl.
Only briefly.
Yeah.
So I can't, because there's some acts. I can't introduce some of the acts without doing his voice.
I know, but I hate it. It reminds me of when we did that radio show on the art of seduction. And you got into full method for that, and we were recording, and you sort of said, oh no, we'll share a mic like we are tonight, and where I'm then trapped, and because you're like, you can't speak because I can't edit you out, we're on the same mic.
It's live.
And it's live. And this was live, and he went all sorts of predatory, or sort of like leant over me with his ankles crossed and one arm against the wall, and it was just,
I was playing a character.
I
was playing a character of a clueless man.
But it's great that you identify that there are revolting men like that out there, and that's actually why why we have so many gay men friends and you have so many female friends. It's because you do understand that actually men can be
yeah, and I think, and also I find, and what I found as well was, like, if you have a talent contest, so I ran this talent contest and I wanted some of the acts to be really just like make people go seriously, but it was like satirical look at what talent contests have become, of what people will just do to get their 5 minutes of fame. And one of the acts was the man could identify the sound of a child just by hearing it cry. But the act went on, and there was like 3 cries, and he went, and there was the first one was like really young. He was like, oh, that one's 2. And I was like, oh, wow, that is a talent, isn't it? Isn't it? Like looking to the audience going, are you enjoying this? You know, is it definitely a talent? Are you sure? And then
identifying it was completely wrong.
I don't know it's wrong, but also sort of like being intrigued to go, well, this is a talent, because how the hell would you know anyway? And then and then was the punchline was that they were his kids, and I was like, are these your kids? Yes. Oh, right, okay. And he made them cry. You're an awful man. Off you go. And it was just like that. It was stupidity. It was a hint of Vic Reeves' Big Night Out, I suppose. But I love creating and just being stupid. And again, sometimes the majority of stuff that I've created has just been for my own entertainment. It will just be just to go, well, if I think it's funny. Yeah, well, I guess it's therapy, but I don't want to make that sound as if I'm mad.
Slightly. All the greatest people are, slightly.
But I wanted it to just be, if I've had fun doing it and then someone else enjoys it, then that's a bonus.
That's your motto for everything?
No, not everything, because there's certain things you can't apply that to, like sex.
What?
Well, if I've enjoyed myself,
yeah,
and the other person has as well then that's a bonus.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Is that not how you think?
Well, I try. I mean, you always look like enjoying yourself. Well, I do for when I'm, for me. But if I enjoy myself, then that's a bonus. But as long as you have, then that's good.
Yeah, I was trying to work out if that was a good thing or a bad thing.
No, but I think that's the thing. Like, for when you put things on, and Rick Rubin said this, and Rick Rubin's one of my absolute heroes.
Yeah. What would Rick Rubin do?
What would Rick Rubin do? When you're starting off with a project, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and that right reason should be doing it for yourself. You're not doing it just to sort of try and say, hey, I'm better than you or whatever. You're just doing it for yourself. And if you enjoy it and the person that views it or listens or eats it or whatever enjoys it, then that is the bonus. And that really is. And that's the majority of my segments or anything I've done on podcast, on radio, were just ideas I had. And I thought, I wonder if anyone will like it. And I thought, well, if I think it's funny, then...
Yeah, don't think about monetising everything.
No, don't. I mean, that's always one of the things I say to people when they ask about starting a podcast. They say, can I monetise my podcast? And I can often be quite frank and say, you can monetise every element of your life if you want, but will it be enjoyable? And I think the most important thing, first of all, is to do it for yourself, because that means you're going to enjoy doing it and you're going to have some fun doing it. And you'll be a little bit more open to other opportunities that might jump out at you as you're on the journey. Because if you're just focusing on making money, then you'll miss all the other opportunities that might be there that could lead to other opportunities that just grow, that help you grow. And I think, that's, for me, it's just a case of starting something and just doing it. If something can start organically and it's your idea and you enjoy it and have fun making it, and if no one else likes it, well, that's their problem.
So anyone can have a podcast?
Anyone can have a podcast. I make podcasting easy. I simplify podcasting. You can record...
I think you should give the business a shout out.
Well, yeah, Your Voice Here is my podcasting company. You can find out all the details in the show notes of this fantastic podcast. But also just, if you want to follow me on Instagram, have a look at Your Voice Here on Instagram, or you can check me out as well, Chapman. That's the CH from my surname in place of the J from my first name, and then the J in front of the... That you get it right. Anyway, I'll put it in the show notes. Your Voice is... We pride ourselves on creating great podcasts and making your life as easy as possible. We want to simplify your life, because making a podcast takes time, effort, energy, and the most precious thing of all is time, because there's only so much going around every day. And I've tried to find an extra hour. I really have.
Well, you get put off things if they take a long time.
Well, not really, if it's worth it. And I think you've just got to focus in. It can be demoralizing if suddenly if you're viewing your goal and you just feel like it's so far away. So we will help you we'll help you start your journey. We'll help you encourage you along your journey, no matter where you are with a podcast, whether it's just a pipe dream at the moment, an idea, something written down on a piece of paper, or it's actually something that you're in a position to go, yeah, I've actually got this great idea and we're ready to record. Or my first advice I would give you though, don't record anything just yet, because I will always like to make sure that the recording is good at the point of recording. We make sure that I help you through that process of getting the right equipment. I'm not affiliated with any brands or anything like that. I just know what works, what's simple, what's the best thing to use without too much setting up.
And you can actually have all the gear and no idea, can't you? Often less is more with podcasting.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, look, when I first started, I've been reading about podcasting. I've been reading about simplifying it and making it really easy to have, 2 mics and everything, and having a mixer and things like that. And I was a real microphone snob, so I thought I had to have an XLR microphone and a mixer and everything. So I spent the money on that. When I did radio, it was like, oh, this is annoying because I'm getting an echo now. And when I do podcasting, it was like, oh, this is really annoying because it doesn't sound that great. So I just went to a normal USB microphone, and there are USB microphones out there starting from like 20 quid up to 600 quid, I guess, if not more. But I think mine is about 40 right now, and it just does a job perfectly. It's a really simple mic, and it can just make you sound as great as this.
We lend out microphones as well if you want to give it a go.
Yeah, part of the service as well. We do. I do everything from basic editing to mentoring to training to the full production package that is just everything, really. Whether that's if your guest hasn't got the equipment, we have loaner equipment that we can send out. We can sort out all the admin involved, all guest management, everything like that. As I said, it's just our aim is to make your journey as a podcaster as enjoyable and as fun as possible, because there are so many podcasts that start and will fall by the wayside because they may be, for whatever reason, it can be often, it usually comes down to downloads, or they're not getting a sponsor. And they will fall by the wayside, and they'll do maybe like 3 episodes a season perhaps, and they'll get to the second one and it will just fizzle out. But often it takes time for a podcast to grow, and that's why I always say don't worry too much about monetizing at the start. Worry about growing a podcast and giving a great podcast that your listeners love. It takes time. Growth will take time with your podcast. But just enjoy that journey and have fun with it.
You'll be better at it.
It's a great way. I mean, I get a lot of people approach me saying, how do I get into advertising on podcasts? And then I'll have the conversation with them and go, well, do you want to advertise on a podcast? Or, looking at your brand and looking at, your company history, etc. You've got a great backstory. You could actually have your own podcast that is advertising a brand and advertising a product without people maybe realizing. It's a very great way to engage with your client base. It's a great way to build new people into the business. It's a great way of showcasing your best asset in your business. Your staff aren't your best asset, they're your only asset. So it's from a point of view of that, there's so many things we can do with a podcast. I'd still like to do some plays and some comedy stuff. If anyone's out there and wants to do anything like that.
Yeah, we've got a new podcast coming out.
That's correct. We have.
You have? I do. With Ben Marlowe. Could be dope. and it could be dope, I think.
I think that could be dope.
Yeah. Yes, it's dispelling the myths and investigating CBD and the world of alternative health, but not being well-being experts, just being talking about our journey and also sort of questions that we get asked or we might have to ask, and so we're kind of doing this to educate.
Yeah, educate and entertain at the
Ourselves,
same time, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about different, everything from micro mushrooms to a question that's always asked is, oh God, I got some CBD and it made me feel really whacked. And it's like, it shouldn't, it doesn't actually have the THC in it, which is psychoactive. So is that psychological? But that's not discrediting people who do feel weird. So I want to investigate why some people feel really kind of high on it and others are just like, oh, I just feel kind of calm and lovely, but definitely not high. So it's talking about understanding CBD, and so that's given me an opportunity to learn. And I don't care about millions of people listening, it'd be lovely, but it's actually to create a community. And that's why I think podcasts are great for local communities, because there's room for everyone at the table. Podcasts have no beginning or no end, really. You can have as many episodes as you want. If it's a community podcast, you can get a collective together. So
it can be very inclusive. It's really inclusive to get. I would love to do something for my community with a podcast, but the problem is you need a few people involved, because first of all, from a point of view of educating what a podcast can do for a community, and then from a point of view of going around and interviewing people, chatting to people, getting out there, engaging with the community, and to do it as just one person, it's quite a thankless task and it's a mammoth task. I've had to go a few times, and just there's always this sort of why do I bother? Because I find community can be so reluctant to take the help that they might need, from a point of view of just showcasing great independent businesses, sports clubs, local unsung heroes, the lollipop ladies of the town.
That's great.
The people,
hero of the day.
Yeah, the hero. But those sorts of things. So there's great sports clubs in this town. I'd love to do more.
And it's all on demand.
It's on demand because you can then find that out. It's because a podcast isn't just like a radio broadcast. Once it's played, it's gone. And obviously, if it's the bigger stations that have got Listen Again and BBC iPlayer, you can hear it there. But with a podcast, it's always there, and it can be played back and could be used for an infomercial from a point of view of a town, telling history. And I mean, we've got some great stuff going on in Tring. I think it's a brilliant. I know we've
gives kids an opportunity to get on the mic.
That to me is what I'd love to do with it, is I think getting the youth involved with the community, because I think it's really important that kids understand from an early age the importance of what community is, the importance of
but also broadcasting.
But also from giving them the confidence to talk and to encourage them to talk, but for longer, to get them out there, really having conversations with people that they maybe wouldn't think they'd ever get in front of, or
we
just
went
finding
to Festival
out
of the Girl, didn't we? We should give a shout out to Festival of the Girl.
Fabulous.
And we wanted to go there and just get kids familiar with the mic and talk about, do you want to have a go on the mic and interview your friends, and also getting sound bites for Festival of the Girl, because it's so incredible. We wanted to just forever eternalise the feeling of the day, the energy, which you can do if you've got a live podcast. And so we were interviewing these kids, and oh my goodness, watch out the future of broadcasting. These girls, the age group was 7 to 11, and they were just pros. They'd pick up the mic and interview each other, and they knew to pass the mic on, which is something I still struggle with. I'll pass the mic on and then ask another question without bringing the mic back to me, and often I'll look away and you all have to gesticulate to look at the mic. And these girls were just phenomenal.
They were.
I say girls because it was Festival of the Girl. We didn't just it was a girls' event, and it was for all kids, but it focused on educating girls and smashing the gender stereotype and definitely getting rid of the gender pay gap.
Yeah,
I've digressed slightly.
I've
gone a bit feminazi, haven't I?
But I mean, it's cliche, but kids are the future.
Yeah.
And I think that they need to be encouraged, because I look at a lot of the community initiatives we have around here, and the majority of them aren't focused for kids. It's almost like kids will be seen but not heard. We get a quarterly publication that comes round. I'm sure they say it's got a big readership, but I think it's actually really got a niche readership, because I can't imagine that kids read it, and I can't imagine there's very few
Well, if
people.
your kids are in sports, it's a great town.
Yeah, there's a lot of sports clubs, but there should be.
But I wasn't a sporty kid, so I would have, I would have suffered growing up.
But
here a
they
bit,
just, I think it's. I don't know what it is. It's a funny thing, because I find that sometimes there's a real reluctance, as I've said a moment ago, of taking the support and the help. There's often reluctance to sort of get out and do it, and I think just the community needs a bit of encouraging. I think there's often an element, and certainly in life, of just doing enough. Well, there's not many people moaning, and everyone seems happy, but there's still people that are, maybe aren't moaning because they feel it's a bit cliquey to get involved with that club, or it's not accessible. They maybe would like to have a go, but they're not sure how. And these communities, anything to do with the community, wherever your community is, should always be welcoming, with open arms and a handshake, to say hello. We want to help. We thank you so much for wanting to be involved. But yeah, I'm digressing again.
No, but it's a great idea. I think it's definitely a wonderful idea to have sort of everyone from, you don't have, it's not groups or clubs in charge. If it's a community podcast where everyone's involved, everyone's included, everyone can get on a mic and, submit something, and, providing it's not breaking the law or offensive.
That's my point. I think what I'd like to hear from the kids, to tell people what they want, because by having a podcast they can be vocal, they can be heard.
Yeah.
They can say, well, we'd like this. Actually, the town has things to do, but it's not the right things. We would like this, and how do we do this, and how is there an opportunity to do this? So,
but they're also, as a byproduct, they're also potentially producing their own podcast show, which is actually then giving them something to do, which for kids who aren't sporty, or I would have, go back.
Any kid. It doesn't matter whether they're sports or not. It's just getting them out there.
Us playing our records, though, growing up. You loved sports. You were great at sports, but if there'd been this opportunity in my community to sort of, who wants to go, and it's not auditions or anything like that. You don't have to go along and be vetted or have a trial. You literally can, anyone can make a little show. Anyone can talk about something they love, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, and then that they can broadcast that, and they can have their own little podcast. It's just beautiful, and that's why I love YouTubers in a way, because I know that there's a lot of obsessive behaviour on YouTube and TikTok, but I do love the fact that these kids have made careers out of being creative. I think we look at the way the art world has changed, how the Tate Modern has only been around 20 years, I can't remember now. But there was nothing like that for art before. Outrageous, rebellious art was always just a bit of a novelty. And then Charles Saatchi got involved and elevated Damien Hirst, and suddenly people recognised it wasn't a joke and it wasn't vulgar, and it was a brilliant sign of the times. And art is whatever you want it to be. And so nobody can tell you can't do a little, your own little podcast about something you love or your passion. Like I said, providing it's not hate or hurting people, it's just wonderful. And being heard is part of healing. If you've going through something, or so, I would highly recommend it. My life is certainly enriched by having podcasts. It's given my husband obviously a great career, but it's also given me the opportunity to just talk. And I don't think I ever check downloads. I probably should. I know we do well, but for me, it's not about the downloads. It's about talking to my guests, and I don't like hearing myself, do I? I always say, believe it or not, I always say, "Oh, can you cut me out?" And I'll be saying this after this. Can you cut me out? Make sure you cut me out. But yeah, it's opened up a whole new world. It makes anyone can be a presenter. Anyone
you can do it wherever you are.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's accessible.
You really
because
can.
This all my podcasts are recorded remotely, and no one's in the same room. Us this evening, we're in the same room tonight for this. I do think it was a bit daft to be sat in separate rooms, but it's very accessible. You can just be at home and you can be chatting to someone on the other side of the planet about your passions and interests, whatever that is, getting them on, interviewing them. It just makes the world a smaller place. It makes you feel good about yourself because you're doing something you love and enjoy. And you think, well, actually, you know what? Maybe it might make a difference. And I think that's a good motto, to try and make a difference, do good every day of your life, no matter how small or big it is.
Bill Murray moment. It's Jeremy's Bill Murray moment. But what I think's really lovely as well, it's not, you're part of Radio Star, and that you've got that final to go through, and that's quite stressful. But I love the fact that, you're doing it, and it matters so much to you. God, I know it was Will, and I know you're playing it down, but I know how much it matters. But at the same time, you're thinking positively onto the next move, the direction you want to take your voice here, and the fact that you want to help others who, might be looking for something like this that can take them out of a very dark place because it helped you. And I think that's really marvellous. I've seen it firsthand, and I've experienced it myself, that having a show or having a podcast, just that interaction and something to do to educate you and entertain your mind is just so good for you, so good for your mental health. Even if, like you said, you're just screaming into a cupboard, you can play it back, listen to it. You can never listen to it again. It's up to you, but you can do it. And I would say that whether you win Radio Star or not, or come 5th, 4th, 3rd or 2nd, I hope it's 1. It'd be wonderful. But I think it's beautiful that where you're taking your voice here, and hopefully achieving a model to roll out to other communities to stay connected. And
absolutely, I'm really keen to do that. So watch this space, I suppose. I suppose I should say, watch this space.
So there we have it. We didn't have a row.
Well, no.
You only needed to go and get a glass of water once.
Yeah.
The dogs weren't too badly behaved.
No, they were all
God
right.
knows what Max is doing.
Oh God.
Yeah. And we've been in the studio a lot today. We're very tired, and you've still got a whole load of editing.
I've still got work to do, so I suppose I should bid you adieu.
Yeah, but thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming on. Once everything dies down, we're back with Diary of a Name Dropper. We've got a couple of fantastic episodes in the bag already. I can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. And so for now, keep listening. Tell your friends. Share. Download. You can find everything you need to know, but I'm afraid to ask about Jeremy, in the show notes. And his link tree leads you to all fab podcasts. We will see you again, or hear you again, or speak to you again next time. Take care. Say goodbye, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were going to do it.
Goodbye, Jeremy. I was going to actually say thank you very little.